A 15-year-old boy took control of the CIA director's private life with a single phone call. No malware, no hacking software, no stolen passwords. Here's how it happened. The boy called himself Cracka, 15 years old, living in a quiet town in the English Midlands. Bored in the way only teenagers in small towns get bored. Nothing to do, hours to fill, and a grudge about American foreign policy that had been building for a long time. He picked up the phone and dialed Verizon. He gave a name that wasn't his. He gave details pulled from public records, a job title, a rough job history, a few facts scraped together from open sources. Nothing classified, nothing exotic, just enough to sound real, delivered with the calm of someone who had rehearsed this exact call in his head a dozen times before making it. 9 minutes later, a customer service representative reset the account information tied to John Brennan, director of the Central Intelligence Agency. 9 minutes. That's all it took to get past one of the most heavily surveilled men in the country. But that wasn't the real target. That was just the door. Inside Brennan's personal email sat a 47-page security clearance application. Foreign contacts, sensitive postings, years of personal history laid out in careful bureaucratic detail. Exactly the kind of document a foreign intelligence agency would spend years and considerable resources trying to obtain through officers, informants, patient recruitment. Cracka had it before dinner. Here's the strange part. He didn't stop at stealing the files. He scrolled through Brennan's own contact list, found a number, and dialed it. The phone rang. John Brennan answered. On the other end was the teenager who had just broken into his private life. And by most accounts, Brennan didn't hang up. He asked what the boy wanted, not who he was working for, not how he'd gotten in, what he wanted. According to the group's own retelling, the answer wasn't money, and it wasn't espionage. It was a message about Palestine, about American foreign policy, delivered by a 15-year-old to the man who ran the CIA, as if the walls between them had simply stopped existing. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Word spread fast. Documents from the account surfaced online days later, some of them routed through WikiLeaks, internal files reportedly dating back to Brennan's time in the private sector, along with correspondence on Iran, on Pakistan, on the machinery of American intelligence itself. A superpower spy chief, outmaneuvered by a kid with a phone. And somewhere, watching the story detonate online, Crackas crew, a loose, informal group calling itself Crackas With Attitude, decided one target wasn't enough. The next call changed everything. They went after James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, the single most senior intelligence official in the entire United States government. Same method, no code, no exploit, just a stolen identity and a convincing voice on a phone line. Investigators couldn't believe it worked twice. The unbelievable part wasn't that it worked once, it was that it kept working. Then came the Secretary of Homeland Security. His personal account breached the same way. Then an executive assistant inside the FBI, whose personal device the group didn't just access, they used it to leave things behind. Files, media, a message almost, proving they had truly been inside. And then something colder. The group obtained the personal cell phone number of the FBI's deputy director and began calling him directly. Mid-conversation, he warned them to watch their backs. They called again anyway. Each new breach should have triggered a wall of countermeasures across the intelligence community. It didn't. And that's the question investigators couldn't shake afterward. If a handful of teenagers with no formal training and no budget could talk their way past protocols built to withstand hostile governments, what exactly was being protected, and from whom? Every successful breach raised the same quiet, uncomfortable fear that a hostile government could copy the exact same method for a fraction of the cost of a real cyber attack, and nobody would notice until it was too late. The group claimed to have reached inside FBI systems used to track live investigations and coordinate crisis response,
claims, not confirmed intrusions, but alarming enough on their own to draw federal attention. Then they published something far more dangerous than embarrassing emails, a list of thousands of names, phone numbers, and home addresses belonging to law enforcement and military personnel across the country. People whose safety depended on staying unlisted, now exposed by a group of kids who had started this as a grudge against one man and somehow ended up holding a national security crisis in their hands.
By now, this wasn't a prank anymore. It was live, unfolding in public, one headline at a time, and nobody in Washington had a clean way to stop it. Every phone call left another thread to pull. It took months, but eventually investigators found the one that unraveled everything. Proxies peeled back layer by layer. Aliases slowly matched to real names, first in the United States, then across the Atlantic in England. A 25-year-old member of the group was identified first, then another. Then finally, the trail led to a housing estate in the English Midlands, to a bedroom belonging to a 16-year-old boy. In February 2016, officers arrived at that house and made the arrest. He was released on bail, and the case dragged on for 2 more years while lawyers argued and hearings were postponed. Finally, Kane Gamble, the boy who had once been Cracka, stood inside London's Old Bailey, the country's central criminal court, and was sentenced to 2 years for his role in the breaches. Others paid more. In the United States, a 25-year-old associate was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to repay over $100,000 in restitution, the maximum the law allowed, for conspiring to hack the accounts of more than a dozen senior American officials. Several more members of the group, most of them teenagers themselves, faced charges of their own on both sides of the Atlantic. What stayed with investigators long after the sentences were handed down wasn't how much CWA had stolen. It was how little they needed to steal it. No zero-day exploits, no sophisticated tools, no breach of a single firewall. Just public information, a convincing voice, and an institution built to withstand foreign spies that had never seriously questioned the person calling in, sounding helpful, sounding harmless, sounding exactly like they belonged. The CIA wasn't defeated by superior technology. It was defeated by trust. And once someone learns how to borrow your identity, trust becomes the easiest lock in the world to pick. A lesson that mattered far beyond one email account and far beyond one teenager in one small English town.